even though Madison Square Garden hasn't been super kind to me, I've had two fights there so far. Both of those fights was the yellow round fight and the Jacare fight, and the third round didn't go so well for me in those fights. So, um, but I take it more as like, all right, I gotta go in there and make it a some good memories in there, and not be afraid of failing in the same place for the third time.
It is always good to catch up with former UFC middleweight champion who is returning to action at UFC 309 in his backyard, New York. Well, his old backyard. He lives not in New York anymore, but he's a New Yorker by heart. In Madison Square Garden, it's always my pleasure to catch up with Chris Weidman. Chris, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fantastic, man. Obviously, fight creeping up around the corner. I hit you up at the interview. It's like, God, this fight's creeping up faster than I remember.
Yeah, it always comes fast. If at first it's feels like it's gonna take forever to get all this time, and then next thing you know it, you're like 2 weeks out from the fight. It kind of always happens that way. Yeah.
Can I imagine you were happy with the Madison Square Garden booking? I mean, I know it's always cool to fight in New York. As I said, that's your backyard. And these opportunities, Madison Square Garden's once a year. So can I imagine you were pretty happy with the timing for this one?
Yeah, I just love the how big of a card it is too. It's a huge card. You got John Jones and Stipe fighting on it. You got Chandler and Oliveira going at it. So there's got a lot of eyeballs, and so it's an opportunity to be able to showcase the skills and put on a show in front of a lot of people, big audience. And being in New York, I always love being in New York, even though Madison Square Garden hasn't been super kind to me. I've had two fights there so far. Both of those fights was the yellow round fight and the Jacare fight, and the third round didn't go so well for me in those fights. So, but I take it more as like, all right, I gotta go in there and make it a some good memories in there, and not be afraid of failing in the same place for the third time.
Yeah. So before we get to all the fight stuff, I got to tell you, you got me on your Instagram when you posted the photo from the Yankees-Dodgers game. I saw that with John Vellante, and I know you posted and said, hold on, it's not actually, I swear to God, I thought it was him for a second. I was like, did he actually do this? Like, was that actually him? Because I saw the story. I wasn't watching the game, but I saw the highlight on Twitter, and I was like, oh man, that's wild. And then I saw your Instagram, I was like, holy crap, was that actually John Vellante doing that?
Oh my God. I got him in some trouble. His wife actually texted me on a group text like, please, you got to let people know this is not really him, because he's got this phys ed job. He doesn't have tenure yet. And like his sister and his wife were like talking to each other about how this is a bad look for John and all this stuff. And I'm used to people hating me. So I was unbothered. And Vellante didn't care at all either. He's like, bro, don't take it down. Don't change anything. Don't tell anybody. But I had to put a little PSA on there, let people know, all right, this isn't really Vellante who ripped the ball out of the guy's hand. I'm not trying to get him fired. But I just thought it was just hysterical. It wasn't my idea, to be fair. It was one of our boys, Anthony Cabisi, is an attorney, and we're on this group text with a bunch of guys. And as that game was happening, that moment that it happened, for whatever reason, he decided to put Vellante's face on the guy who tried to steal the ball out of the guy's hand. And I thought it was hysterical. So I just threw it up on mine. And there was a lot of comments. Yeah, a lot of people took it very serious. I don't know if people obviously we put Vellante's face on the guy. So it was Vellante in the picture. But I don't know. I thought people would know that I was kidding. But either way, it was funny. I thought it was hysterical.
It was good. I did a double take. I was like, hold on now. Was that actually, because I saw the video earlier and I was like,
it kind of looked like Vellante.
He did. The last time
that guy was out of shape and he couldn't bring the guy up, like he was struggling, with the guy's hand. And the last time we see Vellante, it looked like he was struggling just to walk. So everyone probably really thought it was him.
Oh man, it was a good one. You definitely you made me do a double take. I was like, hold on, was that actually John Vellante who did that? Yeah. So well done. That was good.
Thank you.
Really well done. So Chris, last time we talked before the last one to win over Bruno Silva, you said, coming into that fight, you felt better than ever. You're past the leg. You kind of, it was a much different feeling than going into the Brad Tavares fight, but you said, I'm going to kind of gauge my future on this fight. You go out there, you look great. I know the fight didn't end the way you wanted, but did that kind of solidify in your mind of saying I still got it. Like I could still keep going. Cause I know beforehand you're like, I'm going to judge it by the fight. And then you went in there and looked great. And then obviously now you booked this one. Like, did that just kind of help solidify things in your mind and say, I'm going to keep going?
Honestly, it kind of no, not like it's just more. I'm still taking a fight by fight, to see how I feel, see how I perform. It's like right now in the gym, my body, I feel good and I'm doing great in the gym. But I gotta be able to perform under the lights, and so that's all just like fight to fight at this point, at my age and everything. So we'll see how I feel, and then we'll just play from there.
So it's the same thing going into this fight, Eric Anders. Like it's just the same kind of thing. Like how it goes, how you feel is going to kind of
Yeah.
determine the future. So you are literally
Yeah.
taking it fight by fight in terms of where the future goes.
Yeah, I'm pretty much taking it fight by fight, and I'll make my decision after the fight. I'm not planning on putting my gloves down or anything like that, either win or lose. But I'm planning, just to not make any rush decision because right now I still feel great and I'm excited. I love training. I love being in camps. I love just like the whole discipline of it and how it keeps you on routine. It's really addictive. And I'm super competitive. So it's just like the ultimate best thing for me to be doing.
Yeah.
But obviously, you can't do it forever. So that's why I got to take my fight by fight, and kind of just see, weigh the pros and the cons of everything and see where we're at.
But I know you told me like coming out of the Tavares fight, like you said, little things that like just you get in there. It's different from being in training, the kicking, taking kicks, things like that. Can I imagine the Bruno Silva fight? You felt better, just more comfortable in there, just actually the second time around.
Way more comfortable. I thank God right away I was throwing my right leg kicks, and again I was cautiously optimistic that I was going to be able to do that, and right away I started throwing it, and I felt great doing it, and so now I knocked that off the list. I checked that box, because in the first fight when I came back from that injury against Tavares, I thought I was going to be able to throw that leg kick, and he started attacking my legs, and I couldn't. Usually, my first instinct would be to throw a leg kick back or throw some type of kick back, and I realized, holy crap, I can't throw it. I can't throw it. My body, my brain, wouldn't let me do it. And so I'm happy that I got that monkey off my back in this last fight, and I threw a bunch of kicks. I outkicked them like crazy, and so that was nice to be able to do that because I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to really kick or not.
Yeah. I never want to kick anyone when they're down. And I saw you had posted, when Bruno Silva did his interview before his last fight and said like, went as far as saying like he hates you and Daniel Cormier. I was like, whoa. Like that's pretty strong.
Yeah.
I'm sure obviously we saw he lost and afterwards he's like, he's dealing with some mental health issues. He's going to take a break from fighting. Like in a way, like I know, I don't think you hate anyone, but like, is there a part of you like kind of feels bad he's going through that? Cause it seems like what he said before his fight and then afterwards, I'm like, it kind of feels like he's going through something right now. Like I kind of feel for the guy.
You're saying with the hate of me and Cormier, like just the hatred in the heart, and then losing this fight, do I feel bad?
Yeah, and then afterwards, he's like he's having some issues, and he's like, I'm gonna take a break from fighting. Like it just seems like he's going through something right now.
Yeah, listen, I have no hatred in my heart for anybody in this game. Really, anybody at this point. I really tried not to feel that way about anybody. So got hatred in his heart right now. He's going through losses now. I don't know if it's his second or third loss in a row. Who knows if his UFC career is coming to an end? He failed a drug test, for the second time right after my fight, 7 days after the fight he had with me. So I'm sure the world's kind of crushing down on him, and I'm not, again, like you, I'm not trying to kick anybody when they're down, and I hope that he mentally and physically can recover and, just be find happiness in whatever he wants to do. And I hope the UFC keeps him, he's a fun fighter to watch. He puts it all on the line. And I understand, why he hates me. The Cormier thing, I don't really get. That's pretty funny that Cormier got thrown in there. But I was just being honest about how I felt in that fight. Obviously, I'm sorry I poked him in the eyes. I never. Obviously, I didn't intentionally poke him in the eyes. It happened, and it's unfortunate. But in my view, taking away the last two eye pokes that he ended up dropping for, it's just the two before that happened. Like I barely poked him in the eyes, and he was full out dropping to the mat and acting like it's the biggest deal possible. And he poked me in the eye as well, and I felt like I was just dominating him in the fight. He was kind of looking for a little bit of a way out, and so that's why I wasn't so. That's not why. That's maybe why I didn't feel like awful about how the fight ended, because I was like, man, you keep like, if I'm coaching a guy, if you get poked in the eye, you don't just fall. I mean, I understand if it's a bad eye poke and your body gives out on you and you flop to the mat. And if that was the case, if I felt like that was really the case, I'm 100% with him. But I felt like he was just constantly, if his eye got poked, he was just looking for a way to either, get a no contest or, get points deducted from me. And again, like, he poked me in the eye, and I blinked once or twice, and I pushed through. I just didn't think any of them were awful. And I just felt like his heart wasn't really in it. Like, even in the third round, he's obviously losing the fight to me, and he's not coming forward. Like, he's not coming after me. So I don't know. Obviously, I've never poked anybody in the eye in any of my fights. And boom, in this one fight, I poked a guy 4 times. It's awful. It's my fault. I'm definitely going to be trying my best not to poke anybody in the eye again. But I do wish we had gloves that curled our fingers down, man. Like, so just so people know, when you're fighting a southpaw and I'm orthodox, like, the biggest thing is to stay on top of that lead hand. So you're constantly deploying for position. So if I had boxing gloves on, you're not making a fist and coming over. It just appears that the guy's making a fist because it's a big old glove, and you just imagine that his fist is curled. But this is what they're doing. They're coming with their hand. They're patting on top of that glove. And then when a guy explodes in, I just wish my fingers were naturally curled down, like a lot of gloves that we use in training and stuff are, where there's not really any eye pokes, like, ever, because your fingers are more like this, and you can still grapple and everything. But yeah, I got to just make sure I do a good job of guys coming in on me, really trying not to push out, because it is a natural reaction for everybody. To kind of push out like that, you don't want to get anybody's eyes. So I'm going to be definitely more focused on it, but obviously the main focus with the fight, focus on my, the skills and everything. So I can't be ultra focused on just, keep my hands in. It's going to be annoying. I already know it, but yeah, I think that's my whole spiel on that.
If I had one they put out the new gloves. That was the one thing I was kind of disappointed they didn't put the curve in the glove. I was like, why didn't they do that? Like, everyone wants that. Every fighter I've talked to says that, because it's just a natural thing. Like, when you have that curve, doesn't stop you from grappling, doesn't stop you from grabbing. It just stops you from having your fingers pointed directly out.
Yeah.
And when I saw the new gloves, I was like, why didn't they do that? Why didn't they add that in there? It kind of seems weird they didn't do that.
Yeah, me too. I was upset with that when it was pretty much right after my fight that they decided to have new gloves. And I'm like, oh, maybe my fight with the eye pokes, it was another reason. Then there was, I think, the week before there was a lot of eye pokes, and the week after there just happens to be a lot of eye pokes. And I was hoping that there would be just a little bit of a curvature in the gloves, but they sent me out the gloves, and there really isn't. So I don't know. I don't know why they didn't do that. I know I thought that was definitely a direction they would go in, because nobody wants to poke anybody in the eyes. It just stops the fights and ruins fights, and so it just sucks that it's something that we have to really be cognizant about and make sure it doesn't happen.
Yeah. So now, coming out of that, obviously, again, getting a chance to fight back in New York, and then getting a guy like Eryk Anders, big physical guy, football player, big knockout power. I'm imagining for you it didn't really matter who it was, but this seems like a fun fight, and I know that Eryk is usually a pretty aggressive guy, pretty fun fight. So again, can I imagine it really didn't matter who it was, but is it fun getting a guy like Eryk Anders?
It's fun, man. He's I like him as a person. I've hung out with him before. I think he's a cool dude, and he brings the fight, and I like to bring the fight. So it's gonna be interesting who's moving forward, who's moving back, and I'm very excited for the matchup.
What looked like in that Bruno Silva fight, like, it's just, I mean, I'm not saying night and day, but it was kind of felt like night and day between the Tavares fight and the way you were fighting Bruno Silva. I was like, this looks like the Chris Weidman we know. Like, this is the Chris Weidman we know. You were dominating the fight, and I was like, there we go. Like, that's the Chris Weidman we know. So I imagine you want to go out there and have kind of a similar showing here. Like, Eric's a tough dude, but because you knew. I mean, we talked about, like, everyone's gonna have questions come back from the injury. Like, how are you gonna do? How are you gonna look? Obviously, the Tavares fight didn't go your way. You're very honest about, like, what went wrong. But then you go out against Bruno Silva, and again, I know the eye pokes are part of it, but you dominated the fight regardless of that. And so, like, I imagine, like, that's kind of the momentum you want to build in this fight.
100%. I just want to go out there and have a great fight with with no what's the word I'm looking for? First, like not adversity. What's the word I'm looking for? The like issues, like any questions.
No, no controversy. No controversy.
Controversy. That's the word I'm looking for. Thank you, buddy. Yeah, I just don't want any controversy. I want to go out there and lay it on the line without any damn controversy, and have fun and believe in myself, have confidence, and just instinctually pick enders apart and be able to showcase the best version of myself.
When you came back from the injury and again you said like going into training like you felt great and then it was the fight where things went weird and the Tavares fight with the leg. I know like there's always going to be some, it's like guys who have ACL surgeries or guys who have certain surgery, like you're always going to feel it a little bit just because it's natural. Like I had arthroscopic knee surgery in high school and I still like occasionally feel like I'm feeling a twinge in my knee. I'm probably not, it's probably a psychosomatic thing, but in my head I'm like I feel a twinge in my knee. But like compared to now versus like when you first came back, do you still even think about the leg now? Is it still something that even consciously gets in your head just because it's an injury, or are you so far removed from it that it doesn't really get in your head anymore?
It's something I got to make sure I warm up and I'm on top of and I'm strengthening and all that stuff. I think forever. I mean, for the rest of my life, it's going to be that this leg has had now 14 surgeries on it. So, you've had the arthroscopic surgery and you can feel it here and there. Like I've had 14 surgeries just on this one leg and 30 surgeries overall throughout my body. So I got lots of things I got to think about. But regardless of all that, it's funny. I was like with MMA, I still feel great. Like I still feel fine on the mats. I don't feel, I'm 40 years old, all these surgeries. I still feel, great. I'm, going with these younger guys and doing as good as usual, as good as I really ever have. But when it comes to other sports, I feel like I slowed down. Like sports specifically for MMA, my body has adjusted, and I know, I guess, situations to stay away from that would hurt me. And I've been able to be dominant in those positions that that I'm not kind of going into. But I played with baseball the other day with my son. He's both my kids are on these travel baseball teams. They play a lot of sports, but they're at the baseball right now. And they did this parent versus son thing. He's a 12 he's in 12U. And we had to see who could throw harder. So they had the gun out, measuring the speed. And I was never the fastest thrower, but like my 12-year-old son is not going to beat me in speed, on the speedometer thing. And he beat me bad. He threw a 62. I threw a 51 and my shoulder hurt and I felt terrible. I'm like, man, 2 pitches and I was like, I'm done. This is crazy. It was awful. And then we got to switch it around and your kid got to pitch to you and he'd see if he could strike you out. It was like as if it was a real game. You got the balls and everything going, umpire. And he struck me out, man. And I'm telling you, 10 years ago, I will say that was not going to I really believe that wouldn't have happened. I think I would throw harder, and I think I'm hitting the ball off of him. But the age, definitely, I felt old doing that, But when I'm in the MMA gym, I still feel good,
That's wild. Yeah, that's a humbling experience when you're 12. You're like, God, that's not supposed to happen.
He hit me with the slider. And I reached for it. He got me. I couldn't believe it on the last pitch. Yeah, it was pretty fun. I also realized, man, I'm watching these kids play baseball every weekend. Saturdays and Sundays they do the seeding game on Saturdays, usually 2 games, and they have 2 or 3 games on Sunday for the championships. And I'm just telling my kids, if they're not hitting the ball, just hit the ball. Stop making it complicated. Just put the bat on the ball as if it's easy, right? I'm trying to simplify it for them. And it's frustrating when you see them, going through a slump or something. And there I am. I'm like, all right, just put the bat on the ball. And I just couldn't do it. So it's way harder than it looks for sure. I give these kids a lot of respect.
Yeah, I used to do the batting cages, and good Lord, the baseball was never my game. I could do football, I could do wrestling, no baseball. There's no hand-eye coordination there for whatever reason. I cannot. It's faster than 65 miles an hour. I'm not hitting it. I can just pretty much guarantee that.
Yeah.
What's crazy, Chris, is like I remember talking to you. I want to say like after one, as you were coming back, I think it was, and I talked to you about like Connor coming back, and I said like the injury and obviously different injuries, like advice giving him. It's weird. Like I'm sure you saw. I'm sure people probably hit you up about this when Aidan Hutchinson, the Detroit Lions player, had that happen, and immediately I was like, oh my god, like that, and it reminded me of that. And I saw everyone like right afterwards. I saw like reports 2 days later, like, oh yeah, he's going to play by the end of the season. And I was like. I mean, I hope he can, but I was like, man, that seems really ambitious to come back from that bad of a break and like talking about playing at the end of the season. And I used you as examples, like, listen, I know it now. I know every injury is different, and obviously you had to go through a lot of surgeries. But I was like, I've seen what a guy goes through. I know how much trauma that puts on your leg, and I was like, it's wild. You're talking about this guy coming back in like basically like 5 months. I was like, that seems really crazy.
Yeah, that's not happening. I really hope the best for him. I don't know the extent of his injuries. I don't know exactly what happened. I saw the videos, but I didn't like look. I just haven't seen the X-rays. I don't know what they did surgery wise. But man, I can tell you with me, it was the hardest thing I've ever been through in my life by far. I mean, what it take me over 2 years to come back, something like that, right around 2 years. I'm not sure. I fought April 2021. I think I fought in 23, about around that same time. But yeah, it's not fun. But every injury is definitely different. It's a traumatic injury, so everyone is going to be a little bit different. Some people could possibly come back faster. Did it go through the muscle? Did it come out through the skin? Did it hit nerves? What kind of did they fix the fibula as well? As the tibia. I'm sure they put a pin through the tibia if he broke that. But a lot of times they don't put the plates on the fibula. Yeah, so it just kind of depends on what he ended up doing.
Yeah, it's awful, man. I don't wish that on anybody. When I saw it happen, they were like 6 months, 6 months. I was like, that seems a little bit crazy to me. But hey, maybe he can do it. Maybe he's a medical marvel. Maybe he can do it. I don't know. When I saw that, I just know what you went through. We talked a lot during that time, and I was just like, man, like I know. And again, I know everyone's different, but I was like, man, that seems really ambitious. I was like, maybe take the year off and just recover. Like, don't try to rush back because I mean, like I said, I mean, you went through it in 2 years, and you still had little things. And football's yeah, and football's so physical. Like,
yeah, I hope. Yeah, it's very physical, and you got to explode off of it. Yeah, I hope he's able to come back fast. I tried my ass off to come back as fast as possible. I would say, man, if he could get on some steroids and get on some performance enhancers, and they let him do that, I think that's smart, and I think he should be allowed. But that maybe would help be able to come back faster. But doing it all natural and stuff, it's a real it's a dog. It's not easy.
Yeah. Now I'm curious because this card you're sharing space with John Jones and Stipe, and I remember going back years ago, like there was all that talk years ago of eventually you going up to light heavyweight and getting a guy like John Jones. And I know you know Stipe very well. I was actually just in Cleveland with Stipe yesterday. Obviously, your guy John Vellante is very good friends with him as well. I know they've trained a lot together. Are you excited to share a card with him? And I imagine like because I know you always do the weigh-in shows, you do the pre-fight shows, so a big part of your job is like predicting fights, breaking down how things go. Should Stipe be such an underdog in this fight? Like, it seems like everyone is just counting him completely out of this fight. I think that's a little crazy.
Yeah, it's really crazy. I mean, it's a testament to John Jones where everybody has him at, in their mind. So props to him, but I do think Stipe is being very disrespected, and people forget he's a big dude who's tough as hell. He moves forward. He's got wrestling. He's got great boxing, and he's tough. Like. Just like John Jones. John Jones is super tough. Like, you go back to the Cormier fights for both of them. Cormier is a dog, and he tries to drag people in deep waters and drown them there, and he's been doing that his whole career. And both with Stipe and John Jones, they were tough enough to not melt at all and then reign supreme in those tougher rounds where Cormier usually would turn it on, and they turned it on him. So it's just a testament to both how tough they are. But yeah, it's crazy that I can't believe he's a huge underdog. That's nuts.
I said it to Steve yesterday. I said, listen, you can talk all I think I call John the greatest of all time. Like, he absolutely is, but heavyweight is different. When you go up there and that heavyweight power is different. That was like the scariest thing for me about John going to heavyweight is heavyweights just hit harder. I remember watching Steve taking that step back and throwing the right and knocking out Verdum. Like, that's not like it's certainly not his most powerful punch, but he did it.
Yeah.
That's all you need at heavyweight. Like he just needs one little glancing blow to land and he could put John out. Like that's just the reality of heavyweight.
Yeah, he's got heavy hands. He hits hard. It's not an easy fight for John Jones at all, and he's a great wrestler. It's a very tough fight for him, so it's going to be interesting.
Can I get your thoughts real quick before I get you out of here? Can I get your thoughts? Another guy on this card that you're sharing the card with is Bo Nickal, who obviously comes from a similar background as you in wrestling. NCAA champion, multi-time NCAA champion, all the hype in the world around him. Obviously, UFC seems like they're taking time. They're not, rushing and throwing him to the wolves too early. What do you make about it? Obviously, I think you're fighting right before him. He's fighting right after you on the main card.
Yeah, I'm a fan of him. I love watching him fight. I think the sky's the limit for him. Obviously, unbelievable wrestling, and he's working on all the other aspects of MMA. And I think he takes that same mindset that he brought to wrestling, which made him successful there, and takes it into all the other realms of MMA. I think the sky's the limit for him, and yeah, so I'm excited to watch him fight. And yeah.
I always say wrestling is the absolute best base for MMA because that's the hardest thing to learn. But just like you, like when you came in as a wrestler and you started adding boxing, you became a really, really good boxer to go on top of the wrestling because you added that level of your game. It just takes time, right? Like I think Bo's an incredible. Like Bo was down on his last performance, he wasn't happy. He was like, dude, you're like 7 fights in your career. Like it'll take time. Like like you didn't become the best boxer on day one in the UFC. You became a knockout boxer a little later on.
Yeah, I go back and watch some of my older fights when I was just kind of going through the beginning of my career, and I'm watching my stand up, and it's kind of like embarrassing for me to watch. But you you have full confidence, and you believe in yourself, and you have the wrestling. So you strike hard, and then get to your wrestling, and usually you're pretty good. But at some point, in your career, you will be stuck on your feet, and you have to be comfortable on your feet. And so that's the test that everybody wants to see. And hopefully he's comfortable when that time comes, to where he could still just be fine and not be, all, uncomfortable.
Speaking of wrestling, I know I comment on Instagram. This is going back a little ways. We haven't talked in person since then, but I know I'd love to comment on Instagram. Hofstra Hall of Fame, dude. That was so awesome. I was so happy for you, man. I know it's a little while back, but that was so cool to see.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's funny. People forget I'm even a wrestler at this point, and wrestling has been such a big part of my life. I wouldn't be where I'm at all today without wrestling. So to get some respect from the wrestling community and from my college, that was really cool.
Now, your kids, you said baseball. Your kids into wrestling? Have the kids started wrestling?
Yeah, they both wrestled. They just wrestled during the wrestling season. Now they both won the states last year, and they're both, I think the sky's the limit for them. I love wrestling, obviously, but I think it's important to do as many sports as possible at their ages, and not to be just singularly focused on one thing. And passion is something you could really only keep for a certain amount of time. So you just kind of time it up for them the right way. So I'm keeping them spread out and just develop them as much athletically as I possibly can, and then we'll see what they fall in love with and what they get serious about.
If your 12-year-old pins you in wrestling, Chris, we might have to have a different talk. That's all I'm saying. Like if that happens, we might have to have a different conversation. So
I even said after he struck me out, I'm like on the ground sitting, and I'm like, and I rolled to my back like I was gonna pull guard. I was like, well, when do you think you beat me in this? He goes, maybe when you're 70. I'm like, I don't know. I hope you could do it before that. Hey, I'm sorry. I gotta get into this workout right now.
No worries, man. I was getting close. No worries, man. Well, I appreciate taking time for me as always. Obviously, look forward to the fight coming up in a couple of weeks, man. Best of luck. Not that you need it, and man, we'll catch up after another win. All right.
All right. Take care, brother. I appreciate them.